Hello guys, and welcome to another video, and this one is basically a wrapping up of the pre-league content, and this is my plans for the league start of Trial of the Ancestors. So I just want to say before this video begins that this is not a build guide, and I don't really recommend anyone to follow what I'm going to be doing because, well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, this build is mainly designed for hardcore solo self-found, and I'm someone who doesn't really mind playing a slower type of build, and this is definitely going to be a fairly slow build, I think. We're not going to be blasting through maps like crazy, blowing up packs everywhere. And also, you know, the league is a long thing. I know that a lot of people like to kind of get into the league and just juice straight away, but I'm not really bothered going a little bit slower. And so since I'm playing SSF, I'm not racing against the economy or anything like that, so this is my own plans for the beginning of Trial of the Ancestors, and it's going to be a Chieftain build, an Ignite build using the new Flamewood support gem. And I did a test run yesterday for leveling, so that's some of the footage that's playing in the background, but obviously I don't have access to the Flamewood support gem just yet. So for this build, I'm going to be leveling using Holy Flame Totem, and I'll be grabbing Flamewood support as soon as I can make use of it. We don't know just yet when you'll actually get access to that support gem. I feel like it might be a level 12 gem, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll know that information once the torrent gets data mined, and the level requirement for the level 1 gem will be available to see on PoE database. If you've watched my last video, you would have seen the crazy life scaling on Vow Ancestral Warchief. My plan is to make use of this setup later on in build progression as I transition into Ignite. And so I'll be running all of the Vow side areas that I find during the campaign for Val Orbs, or the rare off chance that I actually drop the Vow Warchief gem, and once I have that I'll be leveling up alongside my other gems. During the campaign, the build will mostly be hit focused with some Ignite damage coming through from Combustion, but I think the Fire Mastery for 100% increased damage against ignited enemies will be more than enough damage combined with Flamewood and Holy Flame Totem. My plan is to grab the Chieftain's Arango Notable at the first lab for the Totem Taunt, as it will be great during the campaign. Then in the second and third lab, I'll take Desalio and Valaco. Those are the resistance and max resistance nodes on the Chieftain. And I'll be playing with Determination and Herald of Ash through the campaign, but I'll also be leveling a Purity of Fire gem to swap to later on. I'll focus on the damage and life early on, and flesh out the max res portion of the tree below Marauder Star location towards the end of the campaign. Now this build concept is kind of fully designed for hardcore and solo self-found in mind, which is why it's quite defensive in nature. And I also don't mind the slower playstyle as I mentioned earlier, I actually quite enjoy it. And once I've reached maps, I plan to begin transitioning over to the pure Ignite setup, but I'll still use Holy Flame Totem for initial mapping. I am going to need to test out the Ancestral Warchief setup a little bit to see how slow it will be just relying on Flamewood and Ignite Prolift before I fully commit to that. And in terms of later game progression, my plan is to farm the Divination cards for a Lightning Coil body armor and craft a decent Fizz Taken as Elemental Helmet to help solve physical damage, which has become Chieftain's biggest weakness with the rework. And then for weapon choice, well, a good endgame weapon option will be a 6-link crafted mace with +2 levels to socketed melee gems and +1 to the level of socketed gems. These modifiers will both hit the Vow Ancestral Warchief, massively increasing totem life. And in an endgame setup, the build will be looking at around 5 to 7 million Ignite DPS for the Vow Ancestral Warchief Flamewood proc, and around 90% all elemental resistances, along with something like 75% of physical damage from hits taken as other damage types. But as I've mentioned, I expect the mapping to be quite slow, which I'm fine with, but I think most players won't enjoy this kind of playstyle. I'm hoping that the Forbidden Sanctum will be reasonably accessible in solo self-found, in that the item to access it will actually drop in a reasonable quantity. And I guess we'll have to wait and see just how rare Eternal Damnation has become this league. My plan is to try and farm that necklace too, which will further boost elemental damage reduction. I will leave a rough POB in the description below. It does have the tree pathing for endgame setup, and it has some rough gear in there. Some things are a little bit scuffed because the new modifiers on Chieftain are not recognized by POB just yet, so the resistances and things are scuffed. And there's no like damage or anything because we don't have the Flamewood gem in there just yet. but it has a rough setup for the sort of thing that I like to get to in the end game. But you'll notice that Elemental Overload is spec'd on that tree, and Elemental Overload is a little bit of a weird one with Flamewood since it has a very slow hit rate and a low base crit chance. And I think I'd like to craft the mace in a late game setup using essences for increased critical strike chance for spells, and then possibly also make use of the global critical strike chance totem mastery. This would actually bring the crit chance for Flamewood procs up to around 15%, which will make EO more reasonable. We're pathing there anyway for the damage over time cluster, so the points getting there are not wasted. And that's really about it for the starting build. As I said, it's going to be a bit of a work in progress, a bit of testing things here and there. I'm not really super set on exactly how I'm going to go about getting to that place, but that's what I'm planning to do. And I'm quite excited to actually get into the league and test out the Flamewood support. I think it's actually going to be quite fun. Again, I don't recommend anyone to follow or league start this build. It's going to be pretty slow and steady. There's probably a whole bunch of better options you could go for, but if you do start something like this, do let me know how you get on. And what about my plans for content on this channel post league launch? Well, I'm going to be aiming for 2 videos a week for the first few weeks of the league. The first couple will likely be progression updates, how the build is going, and my thoughts on the league, stuff like that. And I'll move over towards mechanics-based stuff, new interactions, and things you've come to expect to appear on this channel as the league progresses on. And that's pretty much it. What about you? What are your league start plans? Have you been inspired by one or more of the new support gems, or are you going to play something tried and true for league start? Do let me know by commenting below. Thank you to my channel members for your support, and thank you for watching. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.